Hi, I'm Tanmoy Mitra, editor of ETH Insights. Welcome to exclusive interview series on ETH Insights. Today we are going to talk about environmental issues, net zero and sustainability, and we have with us Dr. Sunit Tyagi. He is the managing director and founder of Insolare Energy. Dr. Tyagi, thank you for taking the time out and speaking to ETH Insights.
Thank you for having me on this.
It's a pleasure. Let me begin by asking you, a lot of organizations, in fact, every organization is getting into sustainability, and there are net zero initiatives which organizations are doing. So, what net zero initiatives has Insolar Energy put in place?
Sure. So in solar energy, we are a solution provider. We provide engineering services. Our focus is to develop, innovate, and deliver net zero solutions and effectively become one-stop shop for many of the companies, MSMEs, and other commercial industrial clients of ours to become their one-stop net zero partner.
Right.
We deliver solutions geared to and optimized for their business needs so that they can do what they want to achieve in the ambitions for net zero in a easy, financial, and profit-making way.
Right. This is a very noble venture. What are the challenges that you faced while implementing this net zero initiative? And maybe going forward, what are the solutions you think can overcome these challenges?
Sure. The first thing, if we do not adopt net zero, the challenges would be far worse.
Right.
Now, the challenges world over for net zero are threefold. One is the readiness of technology. Technology itself is in incipient stage. People are still trying out certain approaches. Many of them will work, many will not.
Right.
Second is the financing / economics of the net zero transition. How do you transition towards net zero while making sure that your business runs more profitably, and there is return for that?
Right.
And the third challenge, driven by the first two, is the lack of ambition. Most folks are trying to kick the can down the road, trying to say we'll do net zero when things are ready, when it looks good. But that lack of ambition, unfortunately, is adding to the vicious cycle of delay.
Right.
Net zero ambitions world over are looking at 2050, 2070 for India. That seems to look far, far, far away. I may not be there, but many of you will feel the pain if the transition is not done very quickly.
Absolutely. You've just talked about technology. Now, is there any particular technology you think that needs to be embraced? You know, when you're particularly talking about achieving net zero initiatives.
So there are three aspects of technology which need to be looked at.
Right.
First is reduction of the emissions themselves. We've been merrily polluting, emitting greenhouse gases, carbon from fossil fuels being the first one. So reduction of those emissions is the very first step. And that's where the renewable energies, solar, wind, and even nuclear are going to be helpful. And these are ready technologies. So reduction of emission is an easy, low-hanging fruit, and we should all be going with that. Renewables already are lowest cost when they are being generated, but over the course of a day, they get expensive. Solar does not work at night, so obviously you go to store and that becomes expensive. But adoption of renewables is the first step. The second set of technology angle or vector has got to do with adaptation.
Right.
There would be floods, there will be extreme events like heat waves and torrential rains and or droughts. We need to adapt to that. We need to build resilient environment, we need to build resilient factories, setups, and that will require little extra money. But again, those technologies are ready. Resilience does not require, you just need to be made properly. Your buildings, your malls have to be done better. That is also easy. But the biggest hurdle for technology is what everybody is hanging their hat on is removal. removal of carbon emissions from the atmosphere to reverse the decades or centuries of pollution which we've done, those unfortunately are very, very nascent and expensive. Unfortunately, them being even there in the room somehow creates a moral hazard for people to say, I'll continue emitting because eventually somebody will figure out how to remove. That's not happening in a hurry.
Right.
So we should do the first step first, which is start reducing our emissions.
Right. It's a very valid point you've made. The person or the company in charge, it begins from there. So, in terms of fostering a culture of sustainability within your organization, is there any specific goal you have set, like all employees should adhere to certain responsibilities, or is there a vision you have, probably you want to take it step by step?
So, first thing, because we are in the renewable energy field, because we are embracing and going toward net zero, all of our employees are very high, have heightened sensitivity to being sustainable in our approach as is. However, we reinforce with the employees and hear back from them about how do we innovate to create solutions which may be needed for our clients. How do we get round-the-clock energy to be financially viable for our clients and for the projects to be used? So innovation is one thing which we really push for. It's one of our key values in the culture which we have built. And the other one would be a respect for nature being part of it. All of our plants, we try to make sure have the right kind of environmental approaches taken, whether it be for disposal, whether it be for safety, whether it be for how they are built with terms of hydrographic studies which we do, etc. We are very much aware of it, and each and every of our employees is very sensitized to that.
Right, right. One last question. As a leader in this entire project, how do you see your role in this? And in general, what advice can you give to leaders as a role model for taking up such an initiative?
It's an interesting question you asked. By putting somebody on a pedestal as a leader, you actually set them up for a little bit of critique. But yes, role model, living lifestyle or adoption of technologies and approaches which will impact positively in the future requires an imbibing of the fact as to there is more than just mere profit value of today. By doing a long-term project, a project which pays for itself in 20, 30 years in terms of financials, but has a bigger impact for the community, requires the leaders, as you said, to think through about the sustainability and climate change and net zero in the context of the long game. Cannot be just the short-term profit.
Right, right. Very well put out. Sustaining sustainability in the long run for a brighter future. Thank you, Mr. Tyagi, for all your insights. It was a pleasure talking to you.
Thank you so much for having me.